Welcome, Tiny Hands, Big Dreams, here on the homestead in southern Ecuador.
We love pigs.
We do.
We love pigs. We love pork. It was one of the first animals we got when we moved to our property. We were unprepared for them. We had grand plans.
But we're generally unprepared pretty much every animal we get.
Yeah, that's our belief. Most people say to be all prepared. We're rarely prepared. Now, that being said, we have had pigs before. We had a plan for how we were going to raise them and manage them.
Yeah.
We currently have a breeding pair, and then we have two of their offspring that we're growing out.
Yes.
Which is kind of the way we do it in cycles.
That are probably 150-ish pounds about now.
Which is about that's kind of how we do it. Right now, we are keeping them in electric fence. We have a couple videos about how we do that, and we are moving them on a sort of regular-ish cycle. It's not completely arbitrary. We do have sort of a schedule which basically allows for two areas, and when it's breeding time, we put the two breeders together, and then by the time she needs to move out, we have a whole system. It works relatively well.
And then we grow out the other ones, and then we move the Mrs. Piggles back when she gets close to giving birth. Her herd will get weird hormonally when it gets close. Yeah.
So it works relatively well.
Yeah, that part's good.
Has worked. We are using the pigs at this point as sort of the only earth-moving equipment that we have.
Besides us.
It works pretty good. They move more earth than I would want to. So they are building, they have built garden areas, they have terraced and flattened. And
we have a whole section where they've literally built a road. And they've taken the hill, and where you put the fence across the hill, they will eat, or the nose that are on the uphill side, and move it downhill until they have flattened a perfect terrace that is 10 foot wide.
And we a lot of times we'll put the fence specifically for that reason where we want them.
The pig has built the road for free.
So this is how we're doing it now, and there are positives and there are negatives to the way we're doing it.
Yep.
So the positives are the fact that yes, we're using them to change the landscape naturally. We have really, really healthy pigs because they're eating nature.
They are far healthier as far as a physical health, robustness, but also when you get into the quality of meat, of fat, of bones. All of it is not just like, oh, it's better. No, it is absolutely like a giant noticeable step. Like when you're butchering, you could just set them on a table and you'd be like, wow, that one looks way better. Wow, this bone I can't break to save my own life. That one I can just shatter. And that's the difference of raising them in a natural area. They get to eat mud and bugs and things and trees and bushes.
Yeah.
So there's a huge benefit.
There is also their quality of life. Yes, we raise animals for meat. We also love our animals, and we want them to have the best possible life that they can.
Not in a stinky, dark, sad cement hole surrounded by other anxious, anxiety.
Our pigs are incredibly
animals
happy
in fear
and run around. And
sometimes they literally just run and bark and run in circles and chase each other and just like have a day.
And they're happy, and that's important to us.
Yeah.
That also allows us not to have to feed them as much when they have greens to eat. That can make up a good portion of their diet.
Also, we've sold some of our pigs to other people who keep them in a more confined way. And when I go back to look at them, some of the big muscle mass that ours had gained, like their hams, have started to disappear because they're sedentary. They're not moving around. They're not running. They're not
building
digging.
The muscle.
They're not. And they lose a lot of that muscle. They lose a significant amount of what you're after simply based on the condition.
While there are lots of good things with the way we're doing our pigs, and this was the plan, anyone who has homesteaded knows that sometimes the plan changes. Sometimes things don't work out the way you imagine they will, even if you think of all the different contingencies you imagine exist. We live on a hill of clay that often rains.
At the edge of a rainforest, maybe, depending on the year.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of dry months lately.
But then a week of rain, and the whole thing is just this big mud pit.
The 500-pound boar with
Use 500?
yeah, use 500 pounds with soft, beautiful. There's not even rocks in it.
No.
It's just clay. And
his
he
feet are so
yeah, his nose just he takes almost a shovel full of dirt every nose push and just and then clay once you've like done that and then it absorbs water and then it sort of like smooshes around and
yeah. So it's not working great.
it was stable for a while with light rains and then as soon as it rained a bunch all of a sudden the ground goes from this to which in some places we want and that was great and we intended them to like massively terrace. Sometimes we don't.
Yeah. So those are kind of, we're just up against these issues. I was up feeding them greens the other day and trying to figure out the next place to move them to because they pretty much burnt down their areas. And I'm just like, well, if we move them up the mountain again, first of all, they're really far away. And they're also going to be more and more destructive the steeper it gets. It is also a massive amount of work to put up the fence. I always think we're always like, oh, it'll take this many days, and it takes like 3 times as long as we think. We're working with basically untouched jungle. So we have to go up and you have to make paths for the fencing.
Jungle that used to have big trees.
Yes.
They cut down and took all the big trees. So then all the smaller scrubby stuff has grown up. So it's just really thick with small, bent, scrubby things.
Yeah. So it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, we can't even walk too far. You just sit there, you start whacking with a machete and trying to like blaze.
So to move them is not only the process of clearing for the fence, preparing for the fence, but also the physical moving of the pigs, which is
and then
a whole day.
You can't just move the posts. You have to make new posts to put on the new area. And I'd say we could reuse some of the old posts, except after a while they rot. So most of those are lost materials. Get posts, burn the bottoms. We should have another batch of insulators.
Yeah, but it takes an amount of time. It is also just not ideal anymore with our property. We don't have the biggest property. We have 30 acres, but it's not all accessible.
There's a ravine on that side, there's another ravine on that side, and then there's like kind of a...
Yeah. A lot of it's steep. It's not perfect. So, we need to make changes. Yeah, that's just we've sort of been just kicking the can down the road because we have other stuff to do. We're building a house, we're doing a thing, we're doing all these other things. But we're probably at the point where we need to make decisions about what the heck we're doing with our pigs. Choice number 1, get rid of the pigs.
They are made of tasty pork.
Yeah, but then there's no more pork.
Love the tasty pork. Don't want to get rid of the tasty pork.
Get rid of future tasty pork.
To keep the pork cycle going.
We also have specific genetics.
Yeah.
We also have relationships with these pigs, with the breeding pair. Not only would that emotionally be difficult, but we would have to start over at some point if we ever wanted pigs again.
Yeah.
And I don't want to.
Having a boar that is friendly
is super important.
Yeah, which means you have to start with them small. And there's times where the fence has fallen down.
Or you have to get in there because the pig dish is way over there or something.
Well, the thing is like, He's just a big softy, and you scratch his belly, and he falls over.
He would never intentionally hurt you. So it's important that we've built these relationships with them so that we could keep them.
We've had animals that we would fight to keep in and fight things, and we couldn't get them to come back if they got out, and it was a whole don't want them.
So we do not want to get rid of our pigs.
Yeah.
That is not an option we would like to go with. There is the option of confining them, which is what most people in Ecuador do. Pretty much everyone.
Yeah, they put them in a cell.
Cement.
Cement blocks, covered roof. Here's a water nipple on the wall, and then they rinse it out 3 times a day.
And they get scraps, feed, whatever.
Sugarcane scraps, platano.
Yucca, corn, that's about it.
Yeah.
Now, that is not only that does not only not produce the best meat possible, which is the whole point of this. We eat a lot of pork. Pork is one of our very favorite meats. And the lard is the only fat that we use, so it's really important that it's high quality. And it's not going to be in a confined feeding operation. It's just facts.
Yeah, they need to eat a certain amount of forage to get your omega-3/6 balance right, just to make the fat the right consistency.
They also need to run around, move. It's like a person. If you just sit them somewhere and feed them, they're not going to.
We've bought pigs from local people, similar genetics.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not as good.
No.
And it's not like a fine point. It's not like you sit around and you're judging between your $200 bottle of wine. It's drastic.
So there's the quality of meat, which is important to us as the consumers of the meat. There's also, we go back to the quality of life. I do not want animals in confinement. It does not go along with the principles of what we're doing.
Yeah.
It really goes against that.
Yeah.
That I'm just not, I would almost rather not have the pigs at that point. Because I just can't imagine them confined. I think they'd be miserable and sad. So the other option is to continue what we're doing, which basically means we continue to move them up the mountain, back, around, and sort of scramble for places. It is time consuming on a regular basis for us. It also, at some point, it has an end date. We will literally just run out of property.
Even if we cycled back to the original spot they were on, there's not nearly as much there as when they started. It takes, a few years.
Well, they took out a lot of stuff. Roots out, which was their goal.
Which was the goal, because we're going to turn that into garden.
Well, and the other problem then is we put them in all of these places so they would take out a lot of the vegetation, so we could intentionally plant a garden, an orchard, coffee, the things, all of this stuff.
They didn't just eat the stuff. They dug out the root balls. They ate those. They dug out root balls from old trees that were cut down because there's bugs living around that root ball. So they sat there and pecked in every little nook and crevice until that whole root ball just fell out of the earth. And I'm like, you know how long that would have taken me to get that out? Or to bring in machinery, which is hugely destructive to the land, to try to tear these things out. The pigs did it for us. They've torn out root balls that are, half the size of a car.
So that was the whole point of having them. So we can't really just cycle them back because I need those spaces for other things now.
Yeah. And even if we did, it would be a shorter time period than it was originally. Yes. So now we're moving them faster and faster and faster.
So we could just keep moving them up the mountain and know that has an end date. Yep. Where then suddenly there's no more space for them, and then we are forced to make another decision.
Yep.
The other option is a hybrid of the confinement and the continuing of what we're doing, which would mean building a house, but being able to then let them out sort of at our own convenience or when the weather dictates.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, neither here nor there, not truly, being able to just let them run around like they do now. But also not confine them. That we don't want to lose the benefits of them being in a more natural state.
So it would be like leaving them in or putting them in maybe at night or on really rainy days and only letting them out for a few hours to roam and muck about. And that might help preserve the land a little bit.
Yeah. And on certain days when it's just total soup, maybe
they don't really want to be out there that much anyway.
Yeah, then
they argue about the dry spot.
Yeah, then the mud gets deeper, and then they just try to swim through it. So it would limit that. I think we could greatly extend the time that they spend.
And it would also allow when we have piglets a little bit of a safer place. The further up the mountain they march, the more I feel the need for a safe place for piglets. Because we have creatures.
There's creatures.
And that's pretty far away from us. So
nothing's messed with the piglet except for the bats.
Yeah.
And the
which
bats,
we can't really help.
We could, if we had a tight enough screen on the house and we put them in at night, that would limit bat exposure.
And it would. But it would also eliminate the potential of losing a piglet to a larger creature.
Yeah.
Which there is always the chance of. We haven't had it happen.
No.
There's always a chance.
There's always a chance.
But there are cons to doing that as well. So
it's another thing to maintenance.
It's another thing to build.
It's a thing to build. It's a thing to take care of.
It's an upfront cost.
It's a clean out amount of time every week.
And those things are relatively minimal to me. It's we have to build the structure to house, in some cases, a very large pig who would like to destroy everything around him. That's a major structure to build. And we're still going to end up moving them to new areas, which means having to rebuild that.
When he gets bored, he just starts to chew and destroy things.
Most boys do. Where the pigs are is eventually going to be pasture for eventual sheep. This is the plan anyway. For eating.
Yep.
So don't be a sheep.
Sheep are tasty. We don't particularly like them.
They're all right. They're tasty. So the intention is to use the pigs to clear land, to reseed, and it can be a pasture for sheep. So the grand plan is that if we wanted to do the hybrid confinement and freedom for pigs, that house could then be turned into a sheep house in that pasture for the future.
Yep.
This is all an idea. It doesn't mean it works. We could build the house. I think that's part of my hesitation with building the houses. We could spend the time and the money, the effort to build it, and it could just not work. It could just be a disaster.
Yeah.
And then we're back at square one, and we've spent more time and money when we have the time and money that needs to go elsewhere. Like pretty much every person homesteading ever.
Yep.
There's always somewhere else to put the time and money.
There's a lot of places. Time into videos, time into the garden, time into
building a house?
The poor van would, like some maintenance.
Building a house?
The house is important.
All the things are important.
The longer it takes, the more the chance of this house actually just collapsing. We had an earthquake this morning. Wobble, 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 wobble. And then there's me, like...
You ran away?
Run naked into the driveway or no? No, not today.
Not
today. It has to be pretty solid for me to do that.
An image, though. In any event, pigs. We aren't willing at this point to get rid of the pigs. We want them. We've put a lot of time and effort and money into these particular pigs.
The genetics that we get from them, the offspring, have been excellent. Growth rates are phenomenal. The carcass is the perfect ratio of meat and fat. They're
special pigs. Like we've worked with the genetics. We've tried to find the right ones. In reality, I would prefer to keep more of the offspring because we eat a lot of pork. So we need a system that allows us to keep enough, because otherwise we end up then buying pork, which makes no logical sense.
Two's not enough. But it's having the land. If we had more pigs, they would eat the land and tear it up faster.
Or making the land work better for us.
Yeah.
So we just have to figure it out. We do not have a solid plan as of yet. We have floundered back and forth about things because there is no perfect answer. Like pretty much everything, it is a balancing act, and we have yet to fully figure it out. But if anyone looking at like our specific situation, if anyone has ideas of like how to manage pasture or forest raising pigs without them destroying everything, without just getting a different breed of pigs, because I've watched homesteaders who have the kuni or the American guinea hog or a more grazing pig. That was the dream. That was the plan. Ecuador does not have such a pig that we have found, so that's not an option for us.
No.
It would be lovely. It is not an option for us. Our pigs are tillers, and that's.
But we don't just have like normal ground. It's not normal soil.
No, it's clay.
Yeah, there's a tiny bit of topsoil, and then it's pottery grade clay. At some point, I'll build a kiln, and we're actually just going to start like spinning out plates and bowls and mugs and things.
Yeah. So if anybody has any ideas, let us know because we're open to it. We haven't figured this out yet. We just thought we'd share our journey to figuring out our pig problem.
Yep. Well, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, because
I don't know. Someday we'll figure this out.
and then you'll get to see it. So thanks for watching. See you for the next one.